What's up, you guys? Stoopzz back again with another video, and as you may have seen by the title, today I'm going to show you how to make, well, my perfect user interface for PvP. Obviously, this is a blanket statement. There is no perfect UI, as it is always going to be no personal preference, but I have got a lot of questions recently about my user interface. Now, as you see on my screen, this is not my user interface. I'm gonna start from complete scratch and show you step by step how I built it. I will say I did get this idea from Tren. He's a famous rank 1 DH on EU, so I will put his Twitch stream in the description box below of this video, so if you want to go check out his stream if you're interested. I just want to give him credit because he did inspire a lot of my user interface. There are some things different when it comes to my user interface and how I prefer it, and I will show you my user interface when it's complete somewhere on the screen for both my my protection warrior that I've been playing, or my demon hunter, or other classes. But now I want to start practicing the windwalker monk, so I'm going to start all over and build a new user interface for the windwalker monk. So starting out, to set up this user interface, there are some add-ons that you're going to need to install using like Twitch client or Curse client. You can Google that. It's an app that installs all of your add-ons for you. It's really convenient, but you are going to need to install just a couple add-ons. Now, the first one is optional. It's called Lorti UI, and I will put the add-ons in the description box below this video, the info section of this video, and I might show them on the screen somewhere here. But Lorti UI creates that little dark image around like some of your icons, your abilities. It just adds this darker tint and makes them pop. This is optional. I prefer it. You don't have to have it, but it is called Lorti UI. The second add-on you are going to need to install, which is necessary, is Dominos. I used to use Bartender, but I can't stand it. It's so glitchy, and after I switched to Dominos, I really prefer it, and I'll show you once again how to set it up. But Dominos is what's going to create this look somewhere here on your screen, how all your abilities are like in boxes and they're like layered like this. Again, don't get confused, just stay with me and I'll walk you through everything, but you are going to need to install Dominos. The next one now is Omnibar. Omnibar is how you track your kicks and abilities, so Omnibar is very helpful. And then the next one you will need to install, which I prefer, is Tell Me When, and I'll show you how I set up my Tell Me When and why I think it's important. But it is a nice add-on to track certain abilities that I think a lot of players will find very helpful. Now, the final add-on you're going to need to install is called E-Align or Align. It's just an easy way to kind of create a grid here on your screen to center all of your bars, and I'll show you how you can use that. So again, if you are confused, I'll go over some like optional add-ons at the end. If you want like more specific PvP add-ons that I use, I do have an add-ons video that will be in the description box below. But again, we're just talking about user interface and how my setup looks. Don't worry if you're confused, just install these add-ons once again and follow with me step by step, and I'm sure you'll get it down in like a couple of minutes or so. All right, so getting into it, once you log in with Dominos and all those installed add-ons, your user interface will look like this big mess here. It just looks, a little overwhelming. If you're wondering what this is as well, I guess I should include this add-on. It's called Details. If you're a PvE player, they have SCADA. It's just a way to track like damage. You don't need this one, but if you want to know what it's called, I'll put it also in the description box below as well. So it will look something similar to this. It'll be very, very messy. The first thing we want to do is clean up these bars. There are way too many bars here for me. I don't need all of these. So typically I have like 3 to 4 bars here, and all I will do is click this little logo right here for Dominos, and you'll now, when you left click it, not right click it, if you right click it, it brings up this little menu here, but if you left click it, it will make all these bars become like blue, and we want to start getting rid of these bars. So I don't need number 10, and all you're gonna do to remove these bars, you can drag them off to the side if you like, but we're gonna get rid of as many as we don't want. So first, maybe set up your bars, just add the abilities on to what you want, and then figure out how many bars you're going to need. But for me, I don't need like any of these, so all I'm going to do is drag them away. And then to get rid of the bars or make them invisible, you're just going to use your middle mouse scroll wheel button. Just press that down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now I'll just exit this, and you'll see that I only have those bars on my screen. All those other 5 or 6 bars are now just not apparent, and they're not invisible either. Like I can't click back to them. If I want to re-enable them, I'll just go back and middle click it once again. But that's how you get rid of them. And now we have a much more clean looking user interface. Now what we need to decide is how many slots am I going to need? How many columns am I going to need? So what you're going to do is go back into Dominos, just left click it. It's going to make all of your bars blue once again. And you're just going to simply now use your right click and right click the bar. And this is going to control the size and the column. So if I drag down the size scale, you'll see it shrinks down the bar. So I don't really need, all of these rows here. I don't need this many columns, so I'm just going to shrink them down to what I want. So when I'm looking at this, it looks like I only need maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I can do 11, but I'm going to keep it at 10, and I'm going to clean it up and then put some abilities that I don't need to see off to the side. So I'll shrink down these abilities, or these bars, I'm sorry, to 10. So I'll just simply right click once again, and I'll shrink it down to 1, 2, 3, 10. And then I'll keep doing that for the rest of them. So I'll close out of this. I'll right click on this one once again, and I'll bring it down to 1, 2, 3. Make sure these both drag. If you drag the size, it'll bring them both down. So that's at a 10. And I'll do the same with this one as well. So I'll drag the size, and it will shrink down the column as well to a 10. So now all of those are a 10. So you're probably wondering why I didn't adjust this one just yet. This bar has like my kicks. It has my like sat macros, which if you don't know what those are, I have a macro video that I will put in the description box below. So I have a lot of videos on my channel for almost all of the PvP related questions that you guys might have. So for me, I don't need to see these macros because I already have them on my bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into this section, bring this over here. I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to just bring down the columns. So it's going to reduce it instead of having 12 columns. So 12 long ways, or I guess width ways. I don't know. I'm going to bring down the column to a 1. So now it's just off to the side and on the right. So I don't really see it. I mean, it's going to be on the side of the screen, but I don't need to see them unless I want to add something to them, right? Like if I were to exit out of this menu, you can see now that they're there, but it looks a little like cluttered. I don't like having that on the right side of my screen, especially because I don't need to see any of these really. So all I will do is I'll go back in this menu, again with left click, I'll right click this, and I'll bring down the faded opacity. It means now when I close this, it's there if I hover over it, but it's not there if I'm just moving around, right? So now we're looking at a much more clean user interface, and I have my important abilities here on the screen, my macros and all that like jazz off to the right, and it's faded, and now I have this screen right here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back into this panel right here where I can adjust the rest of these things, and I want to reorganize my bars in the order that I want them. So technically I'm just moving this with left click. I kind of like having my trinket on the bottom, and you can see here that they kind of stick together. If I just kind of bring it down here, it sticks, which is really, really nice. And I'm going to organize them in the way that I want them. Now, once I like get this set up here, I still have the rest of these bars, and I also want to make sure that they're aligned. I want everything to be centered equally. Like, how do I know, which is the exact center of the screen? That's why we have the align add-on. So all you're going to do is type in /, and I'll bring my chat box over here. You can see it right there, /align, and it's going to bring up this grid if you installed that add-on. Now I know exactly like what the center would be for my screen. You can see it right here. And all I'm going to do is I have 10, I guess it'd be 10 columns of abilities. So I'm just going to bring it in between 5 each ways. Again, if you need, if you have 11, then just bring it in between the 11 number. But I'm just going to bring it down and keep it center. So now I know I'm practically dead on with the center of the screen. And now I have an even amount of abilities on each side of the center of the screen, and it looks quite nice. Now for me, I like my bars to be a little bit bigger. So all I'm going to do is, get out of this. I'm going to left click once again, and I'm just going to right click this, and I'm going to increase perhaps the scale, right? I want this to be a little bit bigger. So not the size, but the scale. So I like mine to be about 120. If you want them super big, you can make them like 125 or 130. I'll even do 125 for fun. So I got 125 on bar 2. I'm going to right click this again and go to 125 on the next bar. Make that perfect there. And then I'll also go to 125. So this is a lot bigger than I normally would do it, but we're just going to stick with it for the sake of the video. It's your personal preference when it comes to how large you want your abilities. And also I'm learning the Windwalker Monk kind of like all over again. So I do need to really look at my bars and get comfortable with just my macros or my key bindings. I'm sorry. So now that I have that there, it looks pretty clean, right? Everything looks really nice. But what about the rest of these things, like my cast bar, my pets, and all that other stuff? So for your cast bar, I always like to bring mine down underneath this. Okay, so maybe what I'll do is I'll bring my cast bar and I'm just gonna increase the width to perfectly fit alongside of my bars. So that looks perfect for me. In this setting, it's 500. Now all you have to do is just, you can even put the number if you wanted. So if I just wanted it to be 500, you can type in 500. So you can go incremental along the way, but it looks like 500 fits perfectly. And then I want it to also fill out that dead space there, right? I could bring the whole thing down if I wanted, right? And I could smush down the padding if I wanted. It kind of sticks together like glue, but I don't want to do that. I don't want it to bring it that low. I mean, I can. I'm a Windwalker. Depending if you want a bigger cast bar, you can increase the height. So you could just fill it with a bigger cast bar. For me, I don't really care about that much, especially on a Windwalker. Maybe on a healer, I might want a larger height or width depending on your class or role. But I'll keep this as is, and I'll just bring this down till it hits the bottom and it's back in the center. I'll close out of this and I'll exit. And then now it's there, right? So now you can see that if I were to cast a heal, you'll see the cast bar at the bottom. Now if you want to bring this to the top or however you want to do that, you can, but this is how I prefer it, especially if I'm on a melee DPS. Now what you can do, if you don't like how the cast bar looks, you can adjust it further by right clicking on it, and they have different textures. Like you can do the Blizzard texture, you can make the font look like, you know, 2002 bold. There's different font text and the different textures like classic Blizzard bar or just whatever you prefer. I like the Blizzard bar, and then I also like the 2002 bold. And then I'll close out of this, exit, and this is how I prefer my cast bar to look. And you can even add the icon to it if you want. So you can go back to this. I'll go right back to this once again, and you can even add the show the icon of the ability, right? So if you want to see the icon or if you want the timer there, you can adjust latency padding, a bunch of things. I like having my icon there, so I'll close out, and then now it'll show me that it's an FU's casting. And this is what I prefer. Again, this is personal preference, but it's what I've been using and have found to be the most neat and effective. So now that we've got this set up, right, we're making some progress here. I want to clean up the rest of the user interface, right? I have my bars set up the way that I want them. They look really nice. You can adjust the key bindings by simply, instead of left clicking this time, you can simply right click on Dominos. It even shows you like in the tooltip of it. And you can go to bind keys, just click bind keys, and then you just hover over the ability. It's so much easier than using the standard WoW like interface. You have to like, you know, action bar 2, you have to like count how many spaces over. All you do is if you want to bind the key, you just hover over the you know, the square while you're in this setting. Make sure you check character specific key binds, and then you'll just press escape to clear the key, and then you'll simply just press the key over it. So I want my Tiger's Lust to be Shift F, so I'll just go over it. I'll make sure I'll press escape to clear it, to make sure there's nothing there. You can see that this is V. I'll clear it, and then I can bind them to what I want them to. So Shift F, and that's simple. So you bind your keys now, you have it centered. I still have my align going, but I want to get rid of all this other pizzazz on the screen. Like I don't want my XP bar here. I'm already max level. I don't care. If you want to keep it, you can. If you want to move it around, you can. If you want to make it faded opacity, you can. But I'm going to go back into the domino section where everything is blue again, and I'm just going to middle click them because I don't care about experience or artifact, you know, research or any of that stuff. If you want to make it faded opacity, it's the same thing. You can right click on them and then do faded opacity just like you did for the action bar. So you simply just right click on it and you can choose there, but I don't want them there. So I'm just going to middle click once again to delete them. I don't want this. And then now we have our pet bar. I'll put my pet bar here if I ever have a pet. If I'm a hunter, I like to have them on top of my bars, and you can adjust the size like we talked about earlier, but I don't have a pet as a Windwalker. And then I also have my alerts. I will put my alerts maybe here, and my role maybe there. I don't use these very often. You could even put them down here if you like. I don't use any of these really often, so they don't pop up that often. I can have my encounter here, my vehicle here, and my extra, just in case I'm doing any like quests or something. So this is personal preference. This doesn't relate to PvP, so I'm not going to spend too much time covering it. But those are, you know, how I would set them up. I don't see them very often. Now, the one thing you do deal with a lot is your menu and bags bar. So I'm just gonna bring this menu bar and the bag bar and just snap them together. You could separate them a little bit if you want. You could, you know, reorganize them if you want your bags here and your menu there, but I just like to keep it as default, but just bring them closer together. And then all I will do is I'll right click on them and then once again fade to opacity, because I don't need to see my bags in my menu all the time. It's just not necessary. So I'll just do the same thing. Oh, that's the columns and rows. I'll do the faded opacity. And then now they're there if I hover over them, but they're gone if I'm not. So we're already looking pretty clean. I have my details here for my damage meter, so I can just bring that down like right here. I could shrink it down, you know, or put it in the corner, however you prefer. I kind of like to make mine a little bit bigger, and I can even bring it down here if I wanted to save space. We're only left with a few different things, so we're almost done. That was pretty simple, right? I mean, it seems like a lot. You can watch the video back again if you're kind of confused, but we're almost done here. I want to go over tell me when. Tell me when I like to use to track certain things, okay? I use tell me when to track my kicks and at my blood elf racial. You can use it to track your trinket. You can use it to track your dispel. Anything that I really need to know the timer on, I use tell me when for. For me, as you know, as a DPS, I will always track my interrupt. So every class has one. If you're a DK, you have mind freeze. If you're a windwalker, you have spear-handed strike. You're a you know, if you have pummel, you're a warrior. Kick if you're a rogue. All you do is tell me when should be up by default. You'll know when it's up with this little red arrow here. If it's not up, all you have to do is type in /TMW and it enables tell me when /TMW. So I'll type in /TMW, it'll pop up. And then now I'm gonna drag the abilities that I want to track. So I want to track my kick, and I put it right here very large so I easily see it. And then I can drag this off the bar eventually. And then what else do I want to track? Maybe I'll track my trinket just for the sake of the video. So I'll drag my trinket, shifts onto this bar here. And now I have my two, you know, abilities or important cooldowns that I want to track. So now what I'm going to do after I have my kick and my trinket on my tell me when bar, I'm going to bring it very close, like right next to all of my abilities there. And I'm going to right click on my kick now that I have it aligned. You know, you can use your align grid to make sure it's perfect if you're really OCD like me. And you can right click your ability and it will bring up this menu. And I'm going to make sure that this is scaled to not ready. So we'll always show the ability. I'm going to make sure I check show timer text. A range check is nice, so to make sure to show me if I'm in range for the ability. And I'm going to do show timer text. And then that's it. I'll do it for the next one, and then I'm okay. And then all I will do is /tell me when. And then now I have these two right there. You don't have to do this. I like it. You can even move it higher if you want to. I really got used to using this, and it's really nice for like important abilities. You can make it really big if you want, but this is probably a good size for me, and I might bring it up a little bit just for the sake of this video. You have to make sure that the kick and the trinket is somewhere on your bar, because you cannot keybind these through this, I don't believe. The way I do it is simply I just drag it on to my sidebar that's invisible. So I'll drag over my kick and I'll drag over my trinket as well. And then now, for example, if I were to use, you know, one of my kick abilities here. So if I were to kick this target, you'll see the timer right there, and it counts down very, very large, and it shows me that I'm not in range. You can tell it fades out. So it's really nice, really convenient. This way I can always answer my, my teammates when they ask me, how long on your kick? When can you kick again? I can tell them I have a kick up in 2-3 seconds. It's very easy to see. So now we are almost done. I'm gonna go over Omnibar. Now Omnibar is how you track your abilities and your kicks. Now I do have a video on add-ons, and I have a specific video on Omnibar, so I'll try and put all of these videos in the description box below. So if you are trying to get comfortable with WoW PvP, I recommend you watch all of those videos. Take the time to educate yourself. It's just free. It's just, you just watch a video and chill. I'd watch those videos first, but you will want to set up your Omnibar. Now where I put my Omnibar is right above my abilities. So all I will do is I go to interface, add-ons, I go to my Omnibar, and I'll press test. So I'll go through that one more time. You go to interface. It's so hot in my room. Addons, Omnibar, and then press test. And you can see that I already have 2 bars set up. So wow, these are a lot of abilities here. That's just showing you where they would appear on your screen. So you'll go to your interface again. You'll go to bar 2, and for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna delete bar 2. I don't want bar 2 there. I want just 1 bar. So when you open up your Omnibar, you'll see this setting right here, and you'll press test, and it'll make them all appear. Now all I want to do, I can turn on my align again. So I'll do /align. All I want to do is have these perfect over my abilities. This is how you track kicks and interrupts and things like that. So for me, I'm just going to increase the size to just about where they would line up with my abilities. You can do it through a bunch of different ways. You can do columns and rows and things like that. But I'm just going to do a good size. And I'm going to test. Now this is too big, so I'll bring it down to just about maybe there. Now once I have the sizing right, I'll make sure it's unlocked. And I'll just move them just right over there. Just right along the side of them. And I'll make sure I'll do the test again. So you can just go back, press test again. All the abilities that you're tracking will appear. Baseline, it won't track all of these. This is just the way I prefer it. And again, I have a video on how I set up my Omnibar. So separate video for a different day. But I'm just going to line up my Omnibar if you want to do it like me. You don't have to, but that's the way that I do it. And then eventually this will all disappear. And I will just press my lock button. And that's it. Omnibar set. My interface is set. Now the last thing I want to go over is my unit frames and my nameplates. So a lot of times people ask me like, hey Stoopzz, what unit, what nameplates do you use? I just use the basic nameplates. I go to the interface tab, so you press escape, you go to interface, you go to the name section, and then I always show nameplates. I have enemy nameplates checked. I like seeing enemy nameplates as well as my own nameplates. I do larger nameplates to make sure that the bars are larger. So if I go to interface and I uncheck them, you can see that they shrink over here. And then if I check larger nameplates, it makes them bigger. And this is how I track where the enemy is inside the arena. If they go behind a pillar, I can still see this guy, right there through the wall. So I know where they are at all times. So I just use the basic nameplates. If you want something special, there's things like Tidyplates, but I don't use that anymore. So wrapping it up, the last thing I want to go over is my unit frames because people always ask me. So I went over nameplates, I went over everything else. Now let's go over our unit frames. So standard WoW, you're gonna have your unit frame at the top left corner. I don't like this. I like to bring them closer together. So all you do, this is just basic. You don't need an add-on for this. You just right click on your your unit frame. You go to move frame and press unlock frame, and now I can drag it freely to where I want it. So I probably want to keep mine, like right there so I can see it easily. And then I also want to align my enemy, the person that I'm targeting. So I'll just do the same thing for him, and I'll go down here, right click on the frame, unlock frame, and then drag it just like perfectly like this. So now they're lined up and they're right next to each other. And all I'm going to do is simply lock the frames, and that's it. There's a lot of important information that you'll see on these unit frames, so you're going to want to keep them close together. You're going to want to see what buffs they have on them, if you're dispelling the right things, if they're using a wall, whatever defensives they are using, you want to track that, and you don't want to have to keep looking up at the top corner. You can, it's not awful to do that, but I prefer mine right here side by side. Now, what about for my allies? What about for my party mates? I'm in the arena, I'm in a battleground. What about, I'm in world PvP. What about my party mates? Standard, it's going to look like this. Baseline, you're going to have somebody in your party and you're going to have this little icon here on the left. I don't like that. I like using the raid style party frame. So all I do, this is just you don't need an add-on for this. This is basic WoW UI. You just go to escape. So escape, interface, go down to raid profiles, and then you're going to check this box. Now, baseline, it's going to look like, maybe I'll check on class color. It's going to look something like this. It might be locked over here on the side. Don't worry, I'll walk you through how I set it up again. But it might look like this when you do that. So again, you go to interface, and you're going to check this, and it's going to turn into this probably. Right? It's going to be these little small boxes. I want them to be big. I want to see their health bar. I want it to be close to my own health, So what I like to do is once I check this, I do class color. So that way I know, like, we're not all green. I know what color we are. Okay. And then I'm going to check show debuffs. So I know what debuffs they have on them. And then I'm going to scale these, the frame height and the frame width to full. I main a healer. I like to have them full. And then you can also check display power bars. So you can check all these things to show energy, mana. You can display pets. So once you have all the options that you want, you can have a border on it, but I don't like the border. You'll have something that looks like this. And I'll get rid of my align here so you can see it clearer. But you're going to have something that looks like this. Now all you're going to do is once you have these, you're just going to drag these. So you're going to go over the side menu right here. I'm just kind of doing it a few times so you guys can see it. You're going to go over this little arrow. You're going to press that. You're going to press unlock. And then this little tab, this big square tab will come out. And you're just going to drag it right on top. You know, somewhere comfortable, right on top of your frames. Maybe you'll drag it up a little bit higher so you can save space for a third party member. If you have a lot of party members, then you can shrink the width or the height to fit to how you want it, or you can keep it on the side or on the top, whatever. And then once you have it to where you want it, you're simply going to lock it and close it out. So now I have these and my allies right here, and then my third party member would be right there. And that's it, you guys. I know that seems like a lot, but just watch the video back maybe once or twice. Just download the necessary add-ons. I did it pretty slow. I did it a few times back to back to kind of show you guys, you know, how to set it up. A lot of it's personal preference, but a lot of it is what I prefer. It just keeps things neat and organized. Obviously, like, you know, I could fill out my bars. There's all these this dead space here. I could do, you know, a smaller amount of abilities, so it looks like not filled out all the way, but I could just fill it out, you know, to make it look more complete. You could just do less rows, whatever you prefer. You can kind of customize this to your own class, but overall it keeps things neat, it keeps things clean. It makes or allows me to see everything on my screen much more effectively, and this is what I prefer. But hopefully that answers all the questions that I've been getting on my stream. Hopefully this helps you guys out. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any more questions about how I set this up, or even Trend stream and how he set it up, or just any questions at all about the user interface, you can leave those in the comment section below. Try to miss me on my Twitch live stream where I answer all of your guys' questions in depth. By the way, I just applied for partnership. Do not forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.